Welcome to Tea Talk. Tonight we dive deep into global power politics, what is really going on behind Donald Trump's latest moves. Is this chaos or is it strategy? Venezuela, Greenland, pressure campaigns, geopolitical signals, power plays. Are we witnessing reckless disruption or a carefully calculated master plan? My guest tonight is French entrepreneur and geopolitical thinker Thierry Laurent Pellet. And together we go beyond headlines and clickbait. We analyze motives. We examine power structures and we uncover the unintended consequences shaping today's world. Who actually benefits from Trump's foreign policy? What does it mean for the global balance of power? And where is this all heading? This is not mainstream media commentary. This is a deep dive into strategy, influence, and disruption. Let's get into it. Welcome, Thierry, and thank you for joining us.
Hello, Johnny. Very nice to see you again on your show. And it's always a great pleasure to discuss, in fact, what is going on the geopolitical scene and all over the world. So basically, we have a very interesting topics in regard of the latest developments that seems to go against, in fact, all the declaration of the State of the Union that Donald Trump has been putting together, saying that he wanted, in fact, to stop all the conflict, don't want to start new ones. And what we are seeing for the last, let's say, 10 days is a total chaos, actually, that we can perceive as a chaos. In fact, the Venezuelan crisis is the right continuity of the Ukrainian conflict that we are witnessing between Russia and Ukraine. Sounds to be kind of curious, in fact, to link both of them. But we're going to go in depth in terms of economical development, because this is where is, in fact, the real problem. For this, we're going to go backtrack and understand, in fact, what has been happening and how we have been ending into this situation. 2022, the Minsk agreement never been implemented or respected. The Ukrainians, they have been attacking first the Donbass, and people need to understand that clearly, because the bombing has been starting on the 17th of February. Vladimir Putin is under pressure, and because there is like a ukaz that has been deposited at the Duma, and he had to think about to recognize the Republic of Donbass, meaning Lugansk and Donetsk. When the bombing interfere, he don't have the choice. He need to recognize them. And of course, in the developments of this signature and the recognition, the situation has been poisoning to the point that we are at war. What were the straight consequences out of this? If you look at the market, and especially, in fact, the bonds market in the US, you would have been seeing that China has been getting rid of $850 billion of bonds. What does it mean? It means that Vladimir Putin understood that the conflict was unavoidable, and therefore he has been warning Xi Jinping, telling him, be careful, this is what we're going to do. So if you need, in fact, to protect yourself on a financial point of view, just take action. Xi Jinping has been warning most of the bank and telling them you need to deleverage your exposition to the US debt. And this is what they did. So basically, we could be thinking that the de-dollarization has been starting at that moment, because we understand that when you are buying bonds, in fact, you are buying dollar first. And buying dollar, you're supporting, in fact, the US debt, because then the central bank can flow more dollar and put a collateral on the other side that allows, in fact, the development of the US economy. But in fact, this de-dollarization has been starting much before. Since the coup of Maidan, Russia has been understanding that there will be a problem. And to make Crimea functioning on the banking point of view, system point of view, they had to implement a solution. It was called SPF4. And actually, in 2019, I have been visiting Crimea because I was invited by the Russian government to the Yalta International Economic Forum.
Yalta.
Yes. And so basically, I've been listening to the different people interfering, and especially Sergei Glaziev, who used to be the personal economical advisor of Vladimir Putin, somebody that I'm exchanging a lot with because we have common ground on the economical point of view. And there is a lot of things that he has been working on, especially, in fact, the e-token that is going to support the BRIC platform for commodity exchange. And that is the reason why I have been meeting him several times to understand what was going on within the BRICS, what they wanted to do, and so on. In 2019, during this forum, I was hearing a small music where people were talking about de-dollarization, that they wanted, in fact, to get rid of dollar in the way that this weaponization of the money wouldn't be pressuring their own countries. So basically, there was a sort of music climbing and climbing. But for me, it was a sort of, how to say that? A music without any consistency until, in fact, the conflict erupt, the end of the conflict erupt in 2022. Since at that moment, I have been understanding that Russia has been implementing everything possible to make sure that their economy will be sustainable on the system point of view, banking system point of view. And this is what has been happening actually. During all those years, Russia has been structuring its relationship with different partners, and especially in the Eastern Asia, in the way that they would be sustaining their economy in case of there was a problem. And actually there was. So how this is related to Venezuela? During those years before the conflict, China has been implementing what we call the Belt and Road Initiative. What is it about? This is a set of infrastructure that would link Africa with South America. And of course, one of the big, how to say, countries supporting, in fact, this effort is the Brazil. And then, Bolsonaro,
can I ask something? Is this about ships or aeroplanes or both?
Oh, it's a set of infrastructure. You have bridges, you have road, you have railroad, you have port, you have airports. This is a set of infrastructure that makes this belt that supporting, in fact, the commercial exchanges. Because China understand that with the demographic they are facing, they will have, in fact, to feed a huge amount of people in the next 20 to 40 years. And for this, they will have, in fact, to source the crops from Africa to bring them into Asia. That is the reason why they have been building, in fact, this infrastructure. And this infrastructure was suggested by Vladimir Putin to Xi Jinping. So basically, China started, in fact, to invest massively in South America. You see where I want to go? If you look at Argentina, who decided at a point in time, in fact, to reach the BRICS right before Millet. They started to work on different roads that were crossing the Cordillera of Andes in the way that they will be accessing, in fact, the Pacific side of the South America. So basically, they have been building roads, they have been building railroads, because they want to make sure that instead of going through the Panama Channel, that is becoming a real bottleneck, they could be shipping the merchandise through, in fact, ports that were built on the Pacific side.
Especially because Panama is controlled by the US, right?
Well, it is controlled by the US since Donald Trump has been putting the hands on it. But before, it was controlled by Panama. Okay? But the problem of it is not a question of control, it's a question of supply chain efficiency. If you look at the number of days you need to wait before to enter the Panama Channel, it is costing you about 5 to 6 days waiting. But what is the consequences out of it? You need to pay for it. And those carriers are costing you about $1 million in immobilization per day. So if you wait 6 days, because the Panama Channel is completely crowded, what is happening is you're losing $6 million. On top of it, there are the royalties that you need to pay to the channel. So basically, crossing through this channel from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific costs you about $13 million. So basically, the Chinese are understanding that, and they decided, in fact, to avoid this kind of constraint, financial constraint, and also, how to say that, cash flow constraint. Because if you are losing 6 days at sea, this is 6 days during which, in fact, you are not selling your merchandise.
So is the goal to get from the Atlantic to Europe and Africa, or only Africa?
Mostly this is going to Europe and Middle East.
Okay.
So basically, there is, for example, a port that is in construction right now that is called Copia Port. I've been working on this project. It's a gigantic port that is going to ship crop and minerals. If you look at the time it takes by boat to go to the Panama Channel, it is about 13 to 15 days at sea. If you are shipping the merchandise through the Cordillera of Andes, you are going to gain about 9 to 10 days. So if you accumulate those 10 days at sea plus the 6 days entering the channel, you are going to win about 16 days. And this is a major assets that are completely frozen on the boat instead of being sold.
Yeah, and it's not just about one boat, but several boats, and it accumulates over time when you do it every time. So it actually makes a lot of economic sense. Yes.
Yeah. So if you are an armator and you are owning boats and you have a set of boats, you're losing an amount of money that is absolutely gigantic. Okay. You have 10 boats, you're losing $130 million per rotation. This is a substantial amount of money, my friend.
Yes.
So China has been focusing, especially in Chile, on building, in fact, this infrastructure to make sure that they will be controlling the supply chain of different commodities. And Trump understood that. So basically, Trump right now tried to position himself as, a political entity that is bringing stability for business. But the way that he is doing this can appear as chaotic. What he has been doing, because he's failing in solving the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. And he knows that the midterm are coming the next October, November.
Yes.
On a political point of view, this is a problem because what he has been promising to deliver and to solve this major conflict that is causing a substantial losses for the United States because they want to reimburse themselves by working on the extraction of most of the mineral that are remaining under the Ukrainian control.
And we have to also remember that this was Trump's major campaign sort of theme or slogan, that he's the peace president, and he was supposed to end the Ukraine war in 1 day, I think he said, but it's been a year.
It has been about 380 days that this is a 24-hour resolution.
So this is a problem for his credibility for the midterm elections.
Exactly.
The Republican Party. Yeah.
What he tried to achieve through the reconstruction of the Monroe Doctrine is to make a point on the international point of view.
Can you quickly explain for the audience what is Monroe Doctrine? Because I don't think Finnish people understand this concept very well.
Monroe was a president that has been developing a doctrine saying whatever is in America, south, north or south, this is under our control because this is our garden. So what we want to do is to bring political stability in the way that we can beneficiate of the resources and the right environment to make business. And this is what Trump is trying to impose right now with this stunt that he has been putting together. So basically, he has
I think he coined the term Donroe Doctrine.
No, it's Monroe.
But there's been on social media they call it Donroe Doctrine.
Yeah, Donald.
From Donald.
Okay.
It's funny.
Basically, he has been taking the pretext of this story of drug cartel war, which is completely ridiculous, for several points. The first one is that if you want to go at war against the cartels, the first thing that you need to do is to focus on Colombia, because this is where are most of the cartel making the cocaine, okay? And not in Venezuela. If you want, in fact, to stop the flowing of drugs, perhaps you need to focus on Mexico. Yes. Well, he has been trying, in fact, to introduce the fact that he would be going at war with Colombia and Mexico to justify, in fact, what he has been doing in Venezuela. But in fact, it's like the story of the philosopher pointing the moon, and the idiot is looking at the finger instead of the moon. So people are looking at the story of Maduro, but in fact, they are not looking at the big picture. The big picture was about, in fact, to say, now South America is for me. Think about what has been happening in Argentina a year ago. Trump knew that Milei was in difficulties because the pesos was going down. What he has been doing is injecting massive amount of money into the Argentina economy to support it and to say, this is my garden, I am investing in Argentina. Nobody has touched it. You see, in Chile also, the socialists have been losing election, and therefore this is like a Trumpist that has been taking over. Chile is the door open to the Pacific. So basically it's sending a very strong signal to the Chinese saying, now, South America is my garden, and you are not going to put your feet in it. It's a dangerous game, and we will see why it is so dangerous.
But do you think this is actually about stopping the drugs? Because I think also the problem with, for me, about the cocaine smuggling is that I don't think nowadays cocaine is so prevalent in the drugs market? I think it's mostly stuff like fentanyl and heroin or amphetamine or something.
Cocaine is still a
Cocaine,
big,
I don't think. Okay.
cocaine is still a big
I don't
problem.
use it, so I don't know.
So, to tell you the truth, if you want to go at war against drug, the first thing that you need to do is to focus on the reason why people are using drug.
Yes.
Who are the biggest drug consumer today in the world? United States. Why the American society is in needs of escaping their lives and their reality by using drugs? Perhaps that they need, in fact, to focus on education. They need to focus on releasing the social and the psychological pressure that the US environment is putting together on the young people.
Yes.
You see, so this is, in fact, in my opinion, the first thing that the Trump administration need to focus on. What is the cause that brings our kids, in fact, to use so much drug?
For me, I think the problem is the value system of America and also in Europe, because we have lost our values, so that is creating this
It is. I don't
drug
think
problem in a
it's
major way.
I don't think it's a question of values. I've been living almost 10 years in USA, so I know this society very well. There is an enormous pressure on for success. You cannot fail in the US. If you don't pay your rent, the police is expelling you from your apartment. If you don't have a job, then you cannot leave, and so on. So basically, people are constantly under pressure. If you look at, for example, social benefits for healthcare, this is costing a fortune. If you want, in fact, to be well insured, there is something like Cobra Insurance. It costs you about $7,000 per year. So you can imagine, in fact, the social pressure that are on the shoulder of people, knowing that their government is just spending an amount of money absolutely gigantic outside the United States instead of focusing on their own population. Now, let's go back to the story of Venezuela. Some people are saying, if Donald Trump has been doing this is because of oil. No, it is not true. And I'm going to explain you why. The Venezuelan oil has a very low quality. If you want to refine it, it costs a fortune. And on top of it, during 20 years, most of the infrastructure to extract the oil have been completely abandoned. So basically, in fact, to come out with new infrastructure to make sure that the oil will be extracted in the way that Trump has been announcing it, it would take about 7 to 10 years. So before to see the first barrel out of the current capacity of Venezuela, it's going to take forever. That is the first problem. The second problem, due to the quality of the oil, the refinery of this oil is very expensive. Okay, there is another thing. Who is extracting the oil in Venezuela today? ExxonMobil. Exxon is a US company. So why Donald Trump would be invading Venezuela knowing that he is already in control of the oil? This is completely stupid to think so, you see? So basically, if you look at all those factors, is it the drug? Is it the oil? No. It is something else. It is about to send a signal saying now America is going to recenter its activity on itself. My garden is South America and North America. And actually, that's it. But this is opening, how to say?
So why don't they just say it out loud?
So
Why do they have to? Why don't they just say it honestly out loud that this is what it's about? Because everyone can see that the narrative doesn't make any sense. They have the oil, the drugs are somewhere else. So why do they say these stupid things?
It's political. They don't want to say, in fact, whatsoever they're doing, because then people will be asking themselves why they do this. This is, on an international point of view, what he has been doing is a total nonsense. And he's decredibilizing its capacity, in fact, to settle down others' geopolitical situation. He just tried to show that he's the big gorilla in the room. And this is what he's saying by the declaration over Iran, over Greenland, Greenland, sorry. But for Greenland and Iran, it's another story. Iran is still linked to the story of the Belt and Road Initiative. Let's focus on it. The South Corridor that is going from China through Kazakhstan and to Iran goes straight to Africa. So basically, this corridor, this railroad corridor that has been opened less than 6 months ago, allows China to beneficiate of the Iran oil. And as China's economy is booming, well, they have some problem right now, but this is like, not structural, but conjunctural, due to the level of debts that they have been generating with their real estate. But this is another story. So basically, let's focus on the story of the oil. Today, Trump wants to constrain China with the story of Belt and Road Initiative in South America, but in Iran, because he wants to turn off the faucet, the Iranian faucet, for the Chinese needs in terms of energy. But this is a very dangerous situation, because the Chinese will never accept that the Iranian oil would be at a constraint to access it. So this can generate a situation where we can see a conflict erupting between China and United States. Now, let's focus on the story of Greenland. And this is shifting to the social policy that Trump has been putting together. He wanted to destroy wokeism. He knows who has been implementing this craziness. This is the Dems and the globalists that decided, in fact, to put the people under control by self-constraint of the population to accept things that nobody can accept. If you see a woman that is shaving her head and saying, now I am a man, this is not a man. It's still a woman. I'm sorry. You are XX.
Exactly.
If this is a woman that is telling you, this is a man that is putting a wig.
This is a man.
That is telling you, now I am a woman. Well, I'm sorry, Brigitte Macron, but this is not working. You see what I mean?
Yes.
So basically, Trump wants to reignite, in fact, common sense within the US society. But he knows that in Europe, those guys, they are full-fledged regarding this craziness of wokeism and so on. And he knows that most of the European politicians, they are under the control of the CIA and the globalists coming from America. He knows that those guys will do anything possible to screw him up on a political point of view. They want him to fail. So basically, that is certainly one of the reasons he's so provocative, because he wants to make sure he will find a pretext to exit NATO.
Okay.
This is my perception. I can be wrong.
So is this also tied to Ukraine in the sense that because he was supposed to end the peace. And I saw a lot of he was supposed to end the war and make peace. And I saw many experts saying that Trump's strategy was to kind of force Russia into peace by bullying them. So now he's like acting like a gorilla in the American hemisphere to seem tough also to the Russians. Is this also in this way linked to his behavior to Ukraine?
Let's look at the things taking some distance. United States is not financing anymore Ukraine. That's the first point. There was a gigantic budget that was assigned to Ukraine for the research on the new weapons, especially on the biological, nuclear. He said, enough, I'm not paying anymore. So what does it mean? He wants to make sure that those guys in Ukraine, they are under his control. Okay? And he said, now you are not going to develop any more weapons. But if the Europeans, they want to buy me weapons in the way that they give it to Zelensky, there is nothing I can do about it. He wants to get back the money that has been wasted, by the Biden and Obama administration. That is the first point. Look at what has been happening with this force of reinsurance that Macron has been putting together with these 37 countries around Paris and so on. What is the outcome of this? Last Wednesday, those guys on TV in France, they were just bragging how good they were. Look, we are very strong, we are the best. We are going to pull Russia on the ground as soon as the conflict is finished. As soon as the conflict is finished, you're going to constrain Russia. Yeah, big joke. But who has been signing the agreement? Stammer and Macron, that's it. Witkoff was invited. Has he been signing the agreement? No. The declaration, he has been just throwing it away because he don't want to be involved in this story. He knows pertinently that if those people, they put their feet on the ground, Russia will hit them. And actually, this was completely confirmed by one of the ministers of Vladimir Putin. I was in front of him in May and in June in Moscow. I was in his office. And the guy was straightforward. He said, you know, those people haven't been understanding that this conflict has been erupting because they were forcing Ukraine into NATO. And for us, on the national security point of view, this is not acceptable. It is exactly on the bilateral point of view, it's something that I've been underlining during our last conversation. It's the same thing for the United States. You think that Donald Trump will be accepting that Mexico will be welcoming Russia to set up some military bases under his nose? No, never. And they are right, because it's a question of national security. So basically, on an international point of view, if you want to have like a balanced relationship, you need to consider bilateral relationship completely equivalent. If you don't do that, it's not going to work. So basically, as a European, they're stupid enough for not understanding that, because this is their plan since the beginning. They want to invent a sort of enemy, Russia, in the way that they will be able to justify the federalization of Europe. You see?
Yes.
So they have a political means in the back end of the story, but this political means is extremely dangerous.
Yes.
If they put their feet in Ukraine, they will be bombed. And then, de facto, will be at war with Russia. You can imagine the consequences.
Is it possible that they might start a war with Russia only to create further this federalization, do you think? Are they crazy enough? For example, are they crazy enough to start a war in the Baltic Sea with Finland and Russia? Because the Finnish government is very like gung-ho against Russia. They have seized some Russian ships, and
Well,
this is what I'm thinking.
Let's backtrack a little bit, in fact, to come back to what has been happening in Venezuela. Except the Secretary of State of Defense in the United States has been making fun of the Russian anti-missile system. Okay.
Yes.
He was saying, "Oh, yes. You see, your anti-missile system does not work so well because we have been flying over and nobody has been seeing." Well, forget to tell you one thing, is that this is a CIA operation, that most of the people that were in charge have been paid, in fact, to run away.
Yes.
So, you know, this is like kind of ridiculous to come out with such a statement. But
so
what was the...
Pushed the off switch from the missile system. Maybe.
Yeah. What has been the answer of the Russian? You know what has been happening 48 hours ago. Russia has been blowing the electrical infrastructure in the Lviv city in Ukraine and all their biggest facility to store the gas. And they have been hitting with what? They have been hitting with Oreshnik. One, Oreshnik is a missile you cannot stop. Two, all the Patriot system have been efficient. They haven't been even noticing that the missile was arriving. And it has been destroying the entire complex. So basically, Russia has been sending a signal. I say, you see, perhaps our system in Venezuela haven't been working because nobody were operating them. But don't worry, because our missiles are working extremely well. And you haven't been able, in fact, to stop them, actually. So basically, beware. If you play around, we will be responding. And this is also an answer that Russia has been putting together regarding this reinsurance force that the Europeans, they want to put in Ukraine after the conflict. Say, you have been seeing what we can do, so be careful about what you are doing and what you are wishing for.
Yes.
So basically, as you see, the situation, this is also an answer to the raiding that has been operating on this oil tanker. But let's dig into the story, because this is not so clean. This tanker was
you mean the oil tanker close to the Venezuela, right?
Yeah.
Yes, because there's several. There's also in the Baltic. There's Finns have pirated some Russian ships, and
so this tanker that has been raided by the U.S. Navy was not under a Russian flag. It is at that moment that this boat was coming up front to them that the captain has been calling in Moscow and say, can I put, in fact, your flag in the way that we can protect ourselves? And of course, the Kremlin has been saying, okay, we can do it, but it hasn't been stopping the story. What is really funny in this story is that the crew of this ship was essentially constituted of Ukrainians. So you see the backdraft out of this story. They were thinking they were arresting Russian people, but in fact the crew was completely Ukrainian. It's completely stupid. But anyway, basically, in fact, Oreshnik was also an answer to this action that is completely illegal, because the ship was in international water. But this is very dangerous to proceed, because pushing further, provocation, pushing and pushing, where we can go. At a point in time, some of the party might be making a mistake that would be bringing us to something unthinkable. Now, let's backtrack a little bit and let's focus on the economy. Today, Trump knows pertinently that he has a major problem on the economic point of view. if you, I don't know if you understand a little bit the bonds market that is financing the US debt, but
Not much.
not much. Okay, so I'm gonna try to simplify the story because this is kind of pretty complex and pretty technical.
Mhm.
Today, you have different type of bonds with maturity 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. This is what we call long term.
Mhm.
And what we are observing on this market is that there is no buyer. Nobody want to buy. What does it mean? Foreign investors, they are very scared. They are like, where United States is going like this? Their level of debt is just like skyrocketing. It's not sustainable anymore. When you have $1.2 trillion to pay in interest, the investors, they are looking at this, they say, wow, those guys, they are not going to pay us back. Who is the biggest buyer of US bonds? China, who is not buying anymore. Because on the opposite, what they are doing, they wait for the debt to go to maturity and they don't renew it. The Japanese, what they're doing right now is that as much as they have been emitting yen during 20 years to the point that their currency is completely devaluated, debased, they are obliged to raise their interest rate. And they are stopping what you call the, it's very technical, it's called a shift of trade, meaning with their yen, they were buying dollars, and with those dollars, they were investing on the US market. And they were getting, in fact, the interest back in the country. They have been deciding to stop. But what does it mean? It means that billions and billions of dollars will not be invested into the United States and will be invested in Japan. So who is going to sustain US debt? So basically, the US government knows about that. And what they are doing now, they are emitting what we call T-bills. But this is short-term debt, 3 months to 2 years. But when you do that, the federal bank force you to set up in their TGA, it's a sort of escrow account, the amount of money that is backing up, in fact, the amount of T-bills that you have been throwing. Because as you need to reimburse the principal on the short term, you need to have the liquidity necessary. But when you do this, it means that those liquidity that are completely frozen for that purpose reimbursement, it's not invested into the real economy. And if you look at the repo market, which is like a very particular market, allowing different financial entities, in fact, to borrow. Okay? Who is borrowing right now? This is, in fact, private financial institutions that are looking for major cash and do not have that cash. And this is the reason why they are addressing themselves to this market. It is a short term. Those guys, they are borrowing money for 24 hours. And if you look at what has been happening the last week, the repo market has been exploding. $70 billion in one day. What does it mean? It means that there is no cash in the bank that the bank want to allow to make sure the economy is running. So basically, the United States is on a status of bankruptcy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you see Donald Trump that is saying, oh, I want, in fact, to raise the budget of the army by 50%. What the hell is going on?
$1.5 trillion.
I mean, this is completely crazy. Because this guy don't realize that he don't have the money. So now the chambers, they are saying, hey, where do you go like that? It's out of question that you are going to pray, because if you continue like this, you are going to trigger this gigantic crisis that everybody is scared of. If you look at the commercial real estate in the United States, their debt is about $3.8 trillion. If you look at the ABS, meaning it's asset-based, asset-backed security, this whatsoever they have been doing in 2008 regarding the titrization of the mortgage, they did exactly the same thing for the assets, meaning for computers, for cars, for any kind of things that you can buy. And they have been building those financial products that they have been selling on the market. And this bubble represents $1.5 trillion. So basically, if you take some distance out of this, you are just realizing that even the US citizens are bankrupt. The rate of delinquency for 30 days, 60 days, and 90 days in your United States is skyrocketing. It's going between 8 and 12%, meaning 10% of the population is not able, in fact, to reimburse the loans, the short-term loans they have been putting together to buy a computer. This is just crazy. But it's not finished. You also the AI bubble, $20 trillion. Let's dig a little bit into this story because we are going to make a small digression in the way that people understand how we are going to be eaten in this story. Most of the companies focusing on AI have been putting together a circular mechanism investment. You have Oracle that is investing in OpenAI. OpenAI is investing in NVIDIA. NVIDIA is investing in Oracle. So you have money that is circulating from a company to another one, but there is no business. It is just funds that has been borrowed that needs to be reimbursed with no return on investment, tangible return on investment, because there is no business model associated to that. On top of it, on the infrastructure point of view, United States has a problem. They need to quintuple their capacity of generating electricity because those data centers are eating an amount of electricity that is gigantic. One that if you want, in fact, to ensure the electricity supply to one of these data centers, you need to build a nuclear facility. So basically, they know that most of the data centers they're going to be building in the next 5 years will not have electricity. How can you justify $500 billion investment in Abilene, Texas, the famous Stargate project that Trump wanted has been igniting? And actually, one of my business partners has been visiting the site. It's gigantic, but it will not be operational before 5 years. And during those 5 years, with all those processors and GPUs that has been bought, who is going to get the return on investment on those GPUs? Zero. But there is something worse. Those GPUs and CPUs, after 3 years, they're going to be obsolete. So basically, there is a gigantic amount of money that has been invested, but during 3 to 5 years, there will be no return on investment, and these assets that has been constituted will be obsolete to the point we will have to throw them in the trash. So investors, they start to measure the impact of this gigantic investment that has been put together without any vision on how they're going to get, in fact, their money. Look at what the CEO of IBM has been saying. The guy said, I'm sorry, guys, you have been investing mountains of money, but nobody is going to get return on investment. When the market is going to realize this, and you're going to have, in fact, the big guys that are going to push on the button saying, enough, we are withdrawing our money, we are going to witness the biggest crash we ever seen in the history of the United States. And the Fed is going to be obliged, in fact, to interfere. And at this moment, what they're going to do? They are going to do quantitative easing, meaning buying toxic assets to sustain the market. But don't forget one thing. There is also what you call the margin debt, meaning that a huge amount of companies in the US have been borrowing money with a very small rate to buy their own stock. They need to reimburse at a rate that is extremely high right now. And this margin debt represents $1.5 trillion. Until the market today is extremely high. It's at all-time high. So basically, margin debt is not triggering what we call margin call by the Security Exchange Commission. As soon as the market is going to crash, there will be margin calls. And all those companies that have been borrowing the money will have, in fact, to re-inject cash. And if they don't, the SEC is going to sell their assets. And this is triggering what we call a spiral of collapse. The more you sell, the less capital value you have, in fact, to as a collateral of your debt. And therefore, the SEC is calling you back saying, you need to recapitalize. This can be hell. So today, we have a convergence of crises that makes the legacy of Donald Trump sitting on the barrel of TNT or nuke. Mm-hmm. And this crisis, if the globalists they are triggering it April or May, because this is generally at this moment that they will be triggering this stuff. Who is going to pay the bill? Donald Trump, because there will be the midterm 4 or 5 months after. And he will lose, in fact, the one or two chamber. The Democrats who are facing major attack on the legal point of view due to their misbehavior. We are seeing this with James Comey, who used to be at the heads of the FBI. Don't forget one thing. The wife of James Comey was on the board of director of the Clinton Foundation. So basically, they have been weaponizing completely this institution against Donald Trump. And that is the reason why right now he's backfiring and he's indicting all those people for misconduct or treason. So basically, the Dems right now, they're very scared because they know that a lot of all of them are going to be involved into the lawsuit. Nevertheless, there is the Epstein story that is smelling very, very ugly because everybody is involved in it. And I am just worrying at this point if Trump is not involved also in regard of promiscuity that he had with Epstein. And that might be one of the reasons why he's not opening the files. You see?
Or maybe he's protecting some of his friends or associates who are in the Epstein files.
Honestly
That's my
speaking,
guess,
we don't know.
Because I think if Trump was in the files, then I think the Democrats would have already exposed him.
They do. They do. They do it. You see, if you look at Twitter, you see a lot of pictures of Trump with Epstein, and they're pushing very hard on this. So, there is no smoke without fire. I don't know if he's involved. I'm not sure because this is not how to say, I don't see him sleeping with underage girls. It is not very much the style. But there is something in the back end of this story. Nevertheless,
if there was some very hard evidence, I think they would have already exposed it.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, let's focus on the result of the election. If the Dems are taking over, I do believe strongly in regard of the different the conference I've been attending this summertime, because I was in front of somebody from the CIA and the different advisor within the Senate and the Congress. And I have been sensing that there is something here that they want to achieve. And this is about, in fact, to trigger a conflict. So basically, they would push the European, in fact, to back them up when today Europe is completely split. You have the Italians and the Germans saying now, whoa, because, I do believe that Merz is a dirty snake. He has been pushing
Yes.
Macron, in fact, to engage himself into this conflict story, then to withdraw the carpet and to make it fall. Because I do believe that after being the Chancellor of Germany, he might want to take the heads of the European Union. You see? So basically, there are some dirty political games in this story, but, there might be dirty games on a political point of view, but there is still a risk of real conflict because you don't know what the Polish they want to do. You don't know what the Finnish want to do. There are some guys that haven't been digesting their own history in regard of the tensions between Russia and themselves. So basically, we are the tipping point that would almost justify a conflict to make sure that the population will be forgetting about the debts that have been subscribed by the United States and by the European Union that are absolutely unsustainable and unsolvable. This is, when there is a big financial problem, the only way government had, in fact, to solve them is to trigger a conflict. 1929, 6 years after, Second World War. You see. So this is where we are.
Yes.
We are seeing a guy that is just kicking in the ants house. He's generating a lot of agitation. Meanwhile, he's sending a very strong signal saying, I want to focus on the business. But what he forgot is that he's giving justification to Xi Jinping, in fact, to focus on Taiwan. And nobody would be able, in fact, to open it. Because the Chinese would be saying, hey, you see what you have been doing in Venezuela? So now you zip it. You see? So you open, when you're opening a Pandora box, you don't know what is the outcome out of it. But what we are seeing in general is that international laws does not apply anymore. And this for one reason. And the reason is even a way above. Natural resources, what we call commodities in the world, they are limited.
Yes.
Economies are set up on the statement that they would be able, in fact, to function because there would be always natural resources. It's not true. This is not true. The resources on this planet are finite. They're not infinite. And what we are witnessing today is a fight for those commodities. And in the background, of course, there is a story of debt. But the civilization that are going to sustain and to survive would be those who have the resources. It is China. It is Russia. It is America because they are accessing those resources. And the European Union, with constituted of a country with politicians that do not understand anything in this story, they are just, in fact, the clowns in this story.
Yes.
They have been going against Russia instead of shaking their hands, saying, well, we need the resources for our economy. Let's be friends. This is what General de Gaulle wanted. He wanted to set up the Eurasian Union from the Atlantic to the Ural. And instead of focusing on their own interests for our interests, our economic interests, they have been sustaining the foreign policy that the Dems, they have been igniting against our own interests. Those people are a level of stupidity that is just making me very angry. Because They are going to federalize Europe. And then what? With which resource they are going, in fact, to sustain such a mammoth? How are they going to feed the mammoth? With Russian oil, that is going to be difficult because we have somebody called von der Leyen that has been deciding that the oil is over. No, I'm sorry. It's not with electrical car that you are going to save the European economy. And actually, if I develop on the story of the electrical vehicle, can digress during 1 hour. So much the story is stupid, absolutely stupid.
Yes.
You see? And now she's saying, oh, we are going to sign up the Mercosur because I want to sell some cars in South America. So basically, you are telling us that to save the planet, we need to drive some electrical car, but you are bringing the meat from Argentina when, in fact, we can raise our own cows. But
Yes.
This is bullshit. They are just taking us for idiots, but we are not. We are understanding
Yes.
also. But
So-
I want to send
so-
I want to send a very, very straight message to your listener. We cannot let a few group of people to decide our fate. We need to make sure we are going to neutralize them. Because if we don't, those who are going to pay the bill is us. It is not
Yes.
them. Because don't forget one thing. There is the 7,000 richest family and men in the world that has been building major properties in New Zealand and Hawaii. Because they know that if the things are turning bad, they can still run away with their private jet. And
Yes.
we will be here. And we will face, in fact, the consequences. Now it's up to us to understand what is at the stake, what they're going to do with us, and we need to tell them and to send them a very strong message. Don't screw up because we're going to run after you. You see?
Yes. So can I ask you about the Monroe Doctrine some more? Because actually I did some minor research on the Monroe Doctrine, and it was a bit different before when President Monroe was implementing this doctrine. So do you think Trump wants to go back to that old doctrine, because it changed from that old doctrine to basically colonialism? So do you think Trump is just going for naked, like brutal colonial imperialism to basically rob the Americas of their resources, or is this some other kind of play? What do you think?
Well, it's an adaptation to our era. We cannot say that he's going to do exactly what was done by Monroe, but this is a Monroe Donald Trump wise. So basically, he will compose, but he will not hesitate, in fact, to put the hands on the resources. Look the way that he's claiming the story on oil in Venezuela. This is our oil. Venezuela has been robbing our oil. Come on. This is a sort of colonialism.
Yes.
I don't think that he will be putting boots on the ground, because he's smart enough to understand that if he's destabilizing the country, he will be at war with a country where, because Venezuela is a big country. You have about 48 billion people. How about if the population is just retaliating? So basically, he's pushing on one side, and then he withdraws, say, okay, we did this, but we can still be friends. There will be a sort of composition, because he don't want to look like as if he's a bad guy, because he will disappoint his electorate. If you have like 10 or 20,000 soldiers getting killed on the Venezuelan soil, he will look like the very bad guy. You see what I mean? So basically, there will be a sort of composition. But there is a strong will to make sure that he will be containing China, especially in Iran and in South America. So it's a realignment of the Monroe Doctrine to make sure that the Belt and Road Initiative on the South America will be under his control. In Iran, this is going to be another story, and he better be very careful. Of course, the CIA and Israel has been meddling within the Iranian population, but I do not think that the Iranian government is going to let go. And I do believe that if I was at the heads of Iran right now, I would break a little bit on the pressuring the population, because the more you pressure, the more the problem is going to come back. And we know how this can end. Look at what has been happening with the story of corruption in Ukraine. That was the pretext of the Maidan story. Well, a big pretext, because if you see the corruption under Yanukovych was raiding few businesses here and there, and the magnitude of the corruption that is developing right now in Ukraine, this is just a joke. So basically the story of Maidan, it is not flying anywhere. And actually this is pretty much ridiculous. And the Ukrainians, they need to realize this. They need to realize that their government following on the Maidan coup has been taking them for idiots. And today, they are the guys that are paying the bill when Zelensky is just filling his pocket, and he's filling his pocket at a level that nobody can even imagine. I know about his real estate properties. I know about the money that he has been robbing from the bank and this and that. We talk about $2.5 billion, you see? So basically, when they were talking about corruption in 2012, 2013, this is just a joke, a big joke. But what I have been understanding also is that the European Union has been pumping the money out of whatsoever was sent in Ukraine. How can you explain that the Cayman Islands is not on the blacklist for the fiscal haven? Well, because in fact the fund is going there and they all have accounts. And oh, wow, this is Russia, this is because of Russia. No, this is because of you. And because you are crooks and you are all taking us for idiots, because you are all pumping our resources on our expense. In France today, you cannot find a dermatologist before 9 months. How can you explain this? We had, in fact, the best health system in the world less than 15 years ago. Today, you are looking for a cardiologist. The guy is telling you need to wait 6 months. You have 6 months the time, in fact, to die during this time. I was actually brought to a hospital 2 years ago because I had pressure on the chest. I spent 7 hours in the ambulance. Nobody was coming, in fact, to check me in. Not even making to measure, in fact, my arterial pressure or whatsoever. At the point, I called my brother, who is a doctor, and I say, what should I do? And they say, you have to leave the ambulance and you go to see your own doctor. Then you can be safe. This is crazy. It's every day. So basically, what we're doing is that those people, for political means, they want to trigger a major conflict to cover the debt that they have been generating, to cover the money that they have been losing on our expense, and forgetting completely that the three big boys, Vladimir Putin, Xi Jinping, and Donald Trump, are going, in fact, to split the resources in the world And the Europeans, they are going to look, and that's it. This is ridiculous, you know.
So what about Greenland? Do you think this is just about Arctic resources, or as you hinted, do you think this is actually about breaking up NATO, or is it both? What do you think? Why
There is
is
a little bit of
Trump
everything.
so focused on Greenland?
There is a little bit of everything in this story. And this is going to be a big point of friction between the United States and the European Union. And that might be also the reason why, in fact, NATO is going to be completely dismantled. Nevertheless, knowing that the United States has a base, a military base, already on site, do you see the European Union triggering a conflict against the United States? Come on. Let's be serious in this story.
I don't know, because I've been looking at a lot of posts on X from the Danish government, and they are saying that if the United States tries to invade Greenland, they will send an army and defend it.
Come on, you need to be serious here. Have you seen the military capacity of the United States? How many people?
Of course.
340 million people against, what is the population of Denmark? 10 million?
No, I think it's, I don't know, maybe 4?
6 million? 4 million? 4 million against the 343 or 44 million? No, come on. Let's be reasonable. Denmark will be zipping it big time. There will be a settlement with certainly some compensation, and that will be it. You think that Macron is going to trigger a nuclear attack on the United States?
Of course not.
Say, oh, you're a bad guy, you know, you want to take our mineral? No, come on. This is not serious. Our generals will look at him and say, hey, now you go back to the beach, you are making some sandcastle, please be nice. This is not serious. You know, it's just a question of how to say that, comparison of force. You cannot compare those forces. And actually, NATO without United States, there is nothing. You don't have the radar capacity, you don't have the satellite capacity, you don't have the intelligence capacity, you have nothing. So therefore, that would be like, what are you going to do? You are going to send some tanks in Greenland? This is ridiculous. It's going absolutely nowhere. So basically, I do believe that Trump is going to play the business card, saying, okay, I'm going to compensate you. This is the amount of money. He might give some incentive, saying, oh, we can share some resources. You know, you're going to take advantage of it because we have the power, in fact, to extract them. And then we will share like 90 for 10.
Well, actually, what kind of resources does Greenland have?
You have oil. You have some
fish,
metal minerals,
whales.
You have lithium, if I remember. You have some rare earth. But don't forget one thing. 8 months of the year, you cannot work on the ground because of the temperature. And because it's all covered by ice. So, you know, the amount of resources you can extract in the time frame you can exploit them is extremely limited. So basically, what is the point, in fact, to focus on this kind of things? I do believe that this is pretty much a political mean, in fact, to push, in fact, the European in the corner. Say, you have been stopping me by routing the situation between Russia and Ukraine. I wanted to solve this conflict. And what you have been doing, exactly the opposite. So basically, today you are going to pay. I am going to treat you like slaves. You are just like midget, and I am the big gorilla in the pond. big fish in the pond. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, this is pretty much what we can do. What we can say about the current crisis. And honestly speaking, at night when I think about all of this, I am not very, very comfortable because situation can drift anytime to the unthinkable. You don't know what those guys are in mind, especially in Europe. Trump, as much as he's not predictable, he is not the kind of guy that is going to push a button to trigger a conflict between with China or Russia. I don't think that he would be crazy enough, in fact, to do so. But if the Europeans are backed up by the Dems, that's another story. That's another story.
But the US also has I think, strategic military interest in Greenland. Is this also some kind of maybe missile shield
No, this is blah
kind
blah.
of thing?
I'm going to explain you why. Because the maritime route that China and Russia are utilizing is way further north. Way further. So basically, their boats are not handing in this place. Those who are saying, oh, this is like a point of control, this is just blah, blah. It is no justification because people that don't understand geography, they have never been watching a map to understand what is at stake. But if you look at a map, you understand this is ridiculous to make such a point.
Yes.
My friend, it's pretty late right now. And
do we still have time to talk about the Putin assassination attempt? Because I think you made a very interesting point about that one. I think most people haven't heard.
Well, there was a drone attack that has been that is supposed to have been triggered by Ukraine, and I do believe that this is not Ukraine that has been putting together this attack. They wouldn't have been doing it by themselves in regard of the consequences. So basically, I do believe that the UK is in the back end of this story. And if it has been happening, this is because Zelensky has a backup. You see, he would never dare to do that by himself. But look at the consequences. Last week, Ukraine has been facing major missile attack with drones. They have been destroying an amount of infrastructure that put Kiev in the dark. And if they continue like this, the entire electrical infrastructure of Ukraine is going to be destroyed. Zelensky hasn't been understanding that the more he's pushing to act upon erratically, the more problem he's going to get. The story of conflict is over. He hasn't been understanding. You have about 1.7 million men in Ukraine that has been wiped out. It's almost 1.2 dead, 1.2 million dead, and 500,000 that is disable. What do you want to do? You have a massive immigration. You have massive amount of men that has been killed. The electrical infrastructure completely destroyed. Their military complex, industrial complex is gone. Ukraine, when I left in 2015, there was about 41 million people. On the territory right now, you have 28 million. A big loss of population. You cannot withdraw it. It is impossible. You cannot fix such an immigration. It's impossible. So what does it mean? It means that this is a state that is going to fail. On a financial point of view, it is going to be a black hole, because if you look at the rehabilitation of all the soldiers that has been wounded, and the family compensation that need to be reimbursed, which are not. And that is the reason why Zelensky don't want the numbers to come out, because then he will have, in fact, to be accountable for liability. I have been making a calculation, and actually this is my book, Ukraine, A Warning to the World.
Yes.
This would represent the full GDP of Ukraine to compensate the family. The full GDP, in fact, to pay back all the family which member have been killed or wounded. How do you want to sustain such a state? It's impossible. And the more it goes, the more immigration you are going to witness. And because, when the state is gone, you don't have electricity, and knowing that, the temperature in Ukraine during winter time is just terrible. I've been living there. The first year I arrived in Kiev, the temperature was about 34 degrees below zero in February 2006. How can you live without electricity by minus 34? And actually, in fact, all the canalization, all the pipes, they have been freezing. And therefore, there is no more water in Kiev. And you are hearing Klitschko saying, "No, you leave the capital, and to move west, you are going to move 6 million people." This guy is completely out of his mind. Just settle down and say, "Okay, stop. Let's stop." But they don't want to.
So why do you think the UK was actually behind the assassination? I didn't quite understand. Why UK? Why not some other government?
Because UK has a lot of assets in Ukraine. They own the real estate buildings in Kiev. They own the newspaper, the marketing agencies, the ski resort in Carpathian, in Bukovel and Dragobrat. They own the dating business. They own the trading business for the grain and so on. So basically, they have been putting their hands on most of the valuable businesses in Ukraine. And they know that if Russia is taking over, it's finished for them. It's finished. As soon as the port of Odessa is under Russian control, and I've been living in Odessa for 3 years, and the people there were telling me that they were Russian. I was not understanding that. I was there, but we are Ukraine. Why you say you are Russian? Because this is their origin. And actually, because of the TCC, which is the organization that is abducting people in the street to send them to the front line, people start to retaliate. They are seeing their city's monument getting destroyed. They are seeing their history getting destroyed. And now they start to retaliate. They are sick and tired of this banderism story, I am in contact with a lot of people within Odessa. People are tired of them. They just want to stop. They want to do business. They want to live properly. The port is attacked almost every week. They are tired of this, you see? And that is the reason why there is this exhaustion of the population that is going to backdraft against, in fact, their government. You will see at the end of this summer, winter time, that the things on the social point of view is going to shift completely. So let's cross our finger that the things are not drifting to the unthinkable, but in regard of the financial context in which we are, I see like the same kind of context that we have been witnessing in the post-1929 crisis. This is where we are, but so much bigger, much bigger.
So you think that this was an actual assassination attempt on Putin? Because some people think that this wasn't an actual assassination attempt, that it was only a threat.
No. I think that the UK wanted, in fact, to decapitate Russia, but they made a mistake. I'm going to explain you why. Vladimir Putin, until now, has been extremely patient.
Yes.
And he has been keeping the foot on the brakes. If they manage to kill him, my God, just pray that this is not going to happen. Just pray. Because if
Yes.
there is a guy like a Medvedev that is taking over, he will say, okay, this is casus belli. I am going to take one city in Europe. I'm going to wipe it out.
Yes.
Because
Maybe
the people,
London.
they think that Vladimir Putin is extremist and this and that. I think they don't hear, in fact, who is in the back end.
Yes.
If you're listening to a guy like Soloviev, you will understand that this guy is not joking at all. If you're listening to a guy like Gerasimov, this is another story. Shoigu, Gerasimov, Medvedev, if those people were in charge, trust me, Kiev would be a parking today. A parking. So basically, let's pray strongly that Vladimir Putin is going to stay in power until this conflict is going to stop. Because if they kill him, this is finished for us. I'm telling you, it's finished.
And do you have one final comment on NATO situation? Do you think in this, because you said that Trump is maybe trying to torpedo NATO, and maybe NATO is going to break apart because of maybe this Greenland thing. So what do you think about the future of NATO in this situation?
NATO has no future. It has been showing that it's not efficient. It has been showing that they haven't been doing anything good, that they haven't been containing Russia in Ukraine. They got humiliated. Most of the warehouses in Europe are completely empty. Their material is not adapted to the current situation in Ukraine due to temperature, due to sophistication, due to the maintenance, due to the logistic, the supply chain, and due to the diversity of materials, the sets of maintenance that you need to put together is extremely complex. So basically, they have been showing that they are dumps, they are stupid people. They haven't been able, in fact, to do anything. And that is the reason why this is going to collapse. Because at the end of the story, the population are going to look at them and say, so, is that what you're doing? This is it. What is the point, in fact, for you to exist? Because you are showing, in fact, your inefficiency. And on top of it, if the United States is withdrawing, all the infrastructure that allows, in fact, the functioning of this organization is gone. No satellite, no intel, nothing. It's finished. What is the point? You think that a guy like Macron is going to be able, in fact, to substitute himself to whatsoever United States has been putting together? Come on. Let's not joke. Our army today in France, which is one of the most structured army in Europe, is 50,000 people. And you want to go at war with 50,000 people against Russia? With 3 people army? Hey, dude, come back on the ground, awake. It's total nonsense. Total nonsense. And on top of it, this guy says, Vladimir Putin understands only the language of force. Why Vladimir Putin has the capacity to discuss with Xi Jinping and they are doing business? Why he's doing the same thing with Modi in India? Why you have 51 states in Africa that are knocking at the door of the St. Petersburg Forum to say, please, Russia, we want to work with you. Why this is happening? Because the guy is opening the door saying, let's do business. Let's discuss what we can find as a common ground in the way that we can work together. And let's make sure that we are going to benefit to each other the relationship we are putting together. So basically,
Yes.
what we're witnessing here is the immaturity of those little politicians that are just what puppets. They are just guignol in Europe. They are not mature. They have absolutely no understanding of international relation because they are not Finnish. Just people that are just manipulated by the deep state in the United States for their own means. They are just protecting their own interests and not the population that they are supposed to represent. You see what I mean?
Yes, I can
Because
see absolutely. Yeah.
if they were representing our interests, we wouldn't be in the shit in which we are right now. You see, look at the you know I was looking at the balance sheet of the BCE this week. I was shocked. Christine Lagarde has been buying for 288 billion euro of private equity debt. It means that you have a bunch of companies that are non-banking companies that has been exposed to a level of debt within other businesses, private businesses, and now because those guys they cannot sustain the debt they have been exposed. This is a BCE that is substituting themselves to the private sector. Whoa! What's going on here? What's going on? $288 billion euro. So those guys, they are managing our assets, in fact, for the interest of their friends, not the interest of the population. And I invite every of your listener to go to the BCE website and to check by themselves. You will see a peak like this for December.
You mean ECB, European Central Bank?
Yeah. Yes. ECB, yeah, European Central Bank.
Yes.
Have been buying the debt of the private sector at a 288 billion euro level. But this is detrimental to our own situation. What those guys are doing? This is a gang of crooks that are going to put our economies on the knees. And we are going to pay for it because they are going, in fact, to confiscate our assets. I wish that the guys that are listening to you, they understand that clearly. And actually, what I would do in the next weeks or so, I will publish a document on the US economy, and I will give it to you in the way that your readers will be understanding what is at the stake. But it's not very pretty. Okay? Voilà.
Good.
On those words, I wish you all guys having a good evening because I need to rest also, like everybody.
I just want to advertise your book before you leave because I promised that I would mention your book. So I can't, for some reason, I can't share it on screen. So I'll just read it. So I think it's a good.
Amazon. People can go on Amazon.com. They will find it.
Yes. Yeah. It's called Ukraine: A Warning to the World by Thierry Laurent Pellet.
And actually, this is endorsed by the team of Oliver Stone, with
yes.
I am in contact. And General Vallely, I have been advisor of General Vallely for several years. And he is the man who has been organizing the first meeting between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin in 2017, with the help of Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mikhail Bogdanov.
I'll just throw the link to the chat. These Amazon links are always so difficult and long, but anyway, everyone can go and buy the book to maybe yourself or your friend and educate yourself. So thank you so much, Thierry, for appearing on this show again, and hopefully we will have you again soon.
I wish so. And I am writing the second part of the book right now. Second
Okay.
book that is called The Great Collapse.
Oh, scary. Hopefully we will
We will
remain
avoid it.
somewhat. Yeah. Yes.
Let's cross our
Okay.
fingers. No, when I look at the US situation on a financial point of view, there is no way we're going to escape this stuff. It's impossible. Okay, guys, have a good
Okay.
night. Thank you very much for welcoming me again on the show. And I wish you having a good weekend. Actually, just one thing, last thing. Tomorrow, I'm going to dinner with the father of Oreshnik.
The missile, father of the Oreshnik missile.
Yeah, the Oreshnik is working with technology that is called MHD. And this is technology that has been developed by a scientist of my university, which is called Monsieur Jean-Pierre Petit. And the French didn't want, in fact, to develop it because they were thinking it was not working. And the Russians, they have been focusing on the work, the research work that Mr. Petit has been putting together. And they have been putting something like 1,000 people during 30 years, in fact, to develop it. And proof of it, it works. Now the army is just knocking at the door of Mr. Petit and asking him, in fact, to come and to work and to help them out to develop it. But he's 85 years old. And he has been saying, sorry, guys, 30 years ago, I've been exposing my job. You didn't listen. Now it's time for me to retire and to rest a little bit. You see? On those words, we'll let you know what I have been learning from this great man tomorrow.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Have a good night. Bye. Siinä loistava vieras Thierry Laurent Pellet ja siitä sitten Amazoniin vaan shoppaille, tai mistä nyt tuon saakin, voi sen muualtakin varmaan saada, mutta se nyt oli ensimmäinen paikka, mistä löysin. Joo, jos nautit tämän kanavan sisällöstä, niin jaa linkkiä ja paina yläpeukkua, ja voi myös tukea kanavaa liittymällä jäseneksi tuosta liityn-napista. Nyt ei tullut tänä iltana kysymyksiä. Mulla on maksullinen chatti, joka maksaa siis euron, niin sitten pääsee tuonne chattiin, kun on jäsenenä, kysymään vierailta kysymyksiä. Väitän, että ei kovin monella suomalaisella kanavalla ole tämmöisiä vieraita, ainakaan vielä. Niin jos haluat lisää tämmöistä sisältöä, niin tue ihmeessä kanavaa. Ja olikos mulla muuta täällä vielä? Niin yleisökysymyksiä ei juurikaan, ei tullut mitään. Ai niin, tärkeä juttu vielä loppuun. Kiitos kunniajäsenille, Kumisedille, Esa Kaukinen, Mellu ja Zorro. Niin ei muuta kuin hyvää illan jatkoa ja moikka.